chain and blinking, step into the trade. There's more to lose than can never be won, more to dump than can never be saved. Influencers, tweets, and the noobs all follow, buying high, selling low at a game. But the boomers know, and Sailor, he knows that the dump is coming. It's all the same. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Some of us fall by the wayside, and some of us soar to the stars. But the influencers always win with the Lambos and their cars. So beware of the pump and the inevitable dump, for the cycle continues and the news get wrecked. Tunana, exit liquidity, hot, tunana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hot, tunana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, dump it all. Hardonana, dump it all. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Tunana, dump it all.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
And this is exactly what these Bitcoin Cash people are building.
Shout out to the Dragon Riders and the House of the Dragon.
Because it's a completely different situation than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's how frogs can't boil. And they added a bunch of new opcodes, and they're doing a bunch of things over there.
It will be the most hated rally ever, because a lot of people from some propaganda hate Bitcoin Cash.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode 171, Privacy Coins and DashCon, featuring Joël Valenzuela. Today is Sunday, the 18th of January, 2026. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing in the markets. XMR flip, BCH is at number 11 and Monero is at number 12. But Monero did peak above BCH actually on the back of a $282 million hack, which was being laundered through their chain. So anyway, good to see them succeeding. BCH USD $590.79, down a little bit. One BTC sat buys 161 BCH, sats slightly down. 1 ETH, 564 megasats, also slightly down with a typo on the slide. Selene, 30-day, 599 users, and the Tokenaut TVL, 7,730 BCH. Our guest today is a very long time crypto OG, Bitcoin OG at this point. He's been feeling more of the big blocks recently. I've seen him make several references to that. Joël Valenzuela from the Digital Cash Network, the Dash community, as well as other assorted coins, and AI musician, creator of the Circle of Exit Liquidity, the most requested song we have ever had in the intro or the outro. So that is now uploaded on the podcast YouTube channel for anybody who wants to listen to that or download it. Joel, welcome back to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you. And I should give all the disclaimers about the AI musician part. I had a friend do a lot of these things for me, and so I am a AI music commissioner or producer.
Producer.
Called me the Rick Rubin, right? The Rick Rubin of crappy AI music, right here.
Yes. And how about the big blocking? You know, I've been seeing you say a bit more us big blockers recently. You know, you're clearly feeling the vibes of the BCH top 10. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't expect it this soon, I guess. It's kind of weird where in 2017, right, when the split happened and everything, I thought that the consequences for small blockerism would be felt much quicker. I kind of thought there'd be a few more years, and then we're gonna have this big turnaround, and I was wrong on that one. Again, I like to joke around about the Linkstradamus stuff about like, oh yeah, I'm predicting stuff, but like I've been pretty wrong a few times too. And then after that, I kind of anticipated it would take like a groundswell of like adoption and transaction volume, just all this undeniability to just start to like, rise some things. And then it seems like in the last, I would just say year, maybe even less than the last year, you've had this pop of OG and privacy projects, which is kind of like all lumped into the same thing, that has kind of come before all the users have come. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to say no to this. Like, this is great, but it's not something I predicted. I would have predicted early on that it would be way sooner than it happened. And then I would have predicted it would be like a couple of years later, but I'll take it whenever it comes.
Yeah, you've been completely desensitized. I mean, all of us have been in a way, and it's funny how time, gets away from you. Like, I think at the time of the split, there was certainly that period where the BCH guys were getting a bit wrecked because the people would say, oh, you said that a flippening was coming like next week, or, the death spiral was going to be starting. It's still going to happen. It's just going to take 15 years instead of 5, basically, which is 10 years later than the early B caches might have expected, but is also 10 years faster than the unaware small blockers who thought it was never coming, right? So it's kind of, you said like it's like crocodiles waiting in the weeds, ready to strike, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And there's something about if you have like a business or a community, whatever it is, you need revenue, you need stuff coming in order to sustain things. And you can't always decide when you have revenue, right? Sometimes you just, who knows, you just don't have customers right now, there's a whatever. What you can decide is to cut costs. And something of like, sometimes a lot of these, any success story you've ever heard of, basically, whether it's an artist, a musician, maybe even a AI producer, whether it's that, whether it's like an athlete, whether it's an entrepreneur, whatever it is, you don't just work hard and have a gradual increase in results. You work really hard and then you get nothing, and then you get a breakthrough. And so in order to make it in the big leagues of anything really in life, sorry for getting so philosophical so early into the podcast, but you basically need to be able to survive long term. And so that's kind of what I've seen. A lot of projects that were around in the 2014 era, but especially the 2017 and beyond era, that are just gone now. They just got wrecked. They couldn't make it. Whereas the ones that are still the OG coins, the Dino coins that are popping back up, are the ones that could just sit there and just not die, repeatedly not die, and not hibernate either. Just keep there, keep ready, keep waiting. And yeah, the time is starting to come where now all the network effects of everything we've been building are all coming together into one thing. And now it's going to be time to soar over the next couple of years. It's going to be fun to see.
You think there's going to be a complete revival, a complete renaissance? I mean, we've seen Zcash obviously doing well, Monero, back near the top 10. Same with BCH. Are you expecting them to just power up into the top 10 and then, well, somebody's got to be on the way out if we're on the way in? Who's that going to be?
Let me actually just look at the CoinMarketCap page right now, which, I spent so many years like not even checking basically. And then now I look at it once in a while. But so for one, I hate to say it, but like because of nostalgia, but Doge has gotta go because Doge is great. It's fun. It's lasted the test of time, all this stuff, but it's useless kind of. And I don't want to say be a hater. I'm not a hater. I love Doge, but it's not a top 10. Like if you consider the leagues that it's in next to say Tron and Solana, which ones have more users, more applications built on it, more everything? Like no one's doing anything with Doge. People are doing tons of things with those other networks. So it just shouldn't be around. I'm going to catch heat. I'm probably going to get canceled for this one because they like to do that. But Cardano has no business being a top 10 coin. I really hate to say it because obviously there's a lot of technical stuff back and forth of, is it good? The real thing is there just isn't the top 10 crypto user base. There just isn't. It's just not there. Like the fact that I've seen what's kind of built on there. The Dash community has more integrations, more users, more everything than Cardano does today, I would say, or at least very close to it. And the market caps are just wildly different at this point. And so it's like, that's a sign that people are still like, oh, this is cool. Let's throw some money at it, but not that this is being like used. And then a couple other things like, I don't know, there's like the Solana XRP BNB ones where Solana is doing a ton of things. So as long as they don't, crash and burn with something, I think they deserve to be up there. BNB is kind of like a Binance exchange. It's kind of like Binance on chain. That's literally what it is. XRP, those ones will not need to be in the top 10, kind of. I think that that's when you start to see some changes. There's those couples. And then, you go on, there's a few weird ones like the Unused Leo, was that the Bitfinex token? I don't remember who that was.
That was some kind of payback thing after they rugged their users. I honestly don't really know what there is a point to it nominally, right? But it's just been hanging around for a long time. I don't know when they were going to finish paying back everyone the money that they owed them or whatever, and it's just always in there somehow.
Yeah, so I guess if you take the top 10 to 22 or top 20 to 22 and you remove, especially if you just remove the stable coins, the market caps kind of make sense there as far as like the place these have in the markets, except for, to pick on them, Doge and Cardano seem like the ones that are kind of still that way. And this is way better than it was like 2 years ago. There was just so much trash, like meme coins and that aren't Doge in the top. So once you see like usability stuff start to get there, you still go way down. Shiba Inu has no reason being top 24. I don't know what the hell Canton is, but I know it's not used enough to be worth that. Go down. Polkadot, I don't know. I don't know enough about Polkadot to hate on them. But then when you start to go down through like the top 50, you start to see a lot of like crap. And then when you start to get to the top 100, you start to see the top 100 has a lot of things. Like number 84 is Chili's. What in Satoshi's name is Chili's? And why is it 84? Like, why is it right up there? It's a little ridiculous.
Well, they're doing some good market manipulating, maybe. I don't know. And then what are the projects that you would want to see making a big re-entry? Okay, with BCH, XMR, Zcash, I know you're sort of a fan, nominally speaking, of all of those ones. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Dash as well, maybe Litecoin, maybe Nano. Which other coins are you keeping an eye on that should be getting some more recognition?
So here's my mental model for right now, of like the top, I don't know, 20, maybe 50, depends on how much 30, I don't know. But like the top ones, I would say it has to be a couple big smart contract chains that everything's built on. So like the Ethereums and the Solanas and, hopefully BCH someday soon too, right? Just stuff that people build things on. And then beyond that, it's like the BCH, Dash, Litecoin, Monero, Zcash, kind of like the UTXO, like privacy or OG kind of group there. And then beyond that, I think it should be probably a lot of DEX protocols. So we have a lot of big ones that are centralized exchange protocols, right? Like BNB, like we have, all these other ones. But like, for example, Hyperliquid should be up there. Thorchain should be up there. Maya Protocol should be up there. Near should be up there because of Near Intense. And Aster Dex is somewhere in the top 50, I think. That's another perp Dex. But basically all these exchange protocols. And so it's basically like my mental model, I guess, is there's two. You got like the assets, and then you got the things that connect the assets. And so like a smart contract platform is sort of like both, and then an exchange platform is just that. And so those things should be in there. I don't know, like I don't think we should be listing stable coins on these things because they aren't like you could just deploy them on any chain. They're just, I don't know. It's kind of like, I think you should, you could display them under a blockchain, but I don't think they should be separately listed.
Right. Okay. I was thinking, who am I missing? eCash, BSV. Any thoughts on them? They're a bit out of the picture, right? They're maybe a bit done.
Yeah. So let me. Maybe Xano should be up in there too. I don't know. They keep on, every time I want to be like dismissive of Xano, they keep on doing stuff that's like, oh, well, that's actually cool. Oh, they're making that right move. But as far as the ones you mentioned, I would say, and this is where people get annoyed, like friends of mine get annoyed at me, but that's fine. The ones that I like, but I'm hesitant to see if they're like on the way up kind of thing, would be Nano for sure, BSV, and eCash, and possibly Decred. Decred at least seems to be trying to get there. They have their own decentralized exchange. Unfortunately, it's an atomic one, which means it's not a good user experience, but I'm trying to help them out with some tips and stuff to like join that. And once they do that, maybe they can be back up there. But I guess the thing about Nano's, the thing is Nano kind of hit its like ceiling of what it can do as far as like instant zero fee transactions that just sort of work. It's just like there, and they achieve their goals. And then where do you go from there? Apparently the market wants more than that. They want that plus privacy. They want that plus smart contracts, usability, whatever else. They want other things with that. And because of its completely fee gutted infrastructure, there's no real like, as they say, they call it like rent seeking and capture and all use all these terms to refer to like fee-based blockchains. But on the other hand, like it's kind of true.
That's called employment. But that's like people in your ecosystem,
Yes. But like rent seeking is like the negative value capture. It's where you prevent progress in order to make money on it. But you do need ownership and profitability to be able to incentivize people to actually do things. Like, how are you going to grow the ecosystem? Like, oh, yay, we have 1 billion nano transactions a day. This is fantastic. And no one's making money off of it. So why would you do that? Why wouldn't you do the same thing on, let's say, an eCash, for example, where if you have a mining pool, you stake, you can get some of those fees. So I kind of feel like Nano needs something else. They need some sort of a value capture mechanism built in, whether it's like a Nano Foundation that invests in tokens and like they raise money through donations, and then they invest in an app or whatever, that some of the revenue goes back and they buy Nano with it or something. They got to like bootstrap on some sort of a value capture mechanism, because otherwise the network's just going to be flat. So
But they don't want
that's
to do
kind of
that. That's
thing on
that's
Nano.
the problem, as you know. Like the whole it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The attraction, the reason that people get obsessed with Nano, and thankfully they have started to move away from it a little bit, right? But is that whole it's feeless. There's no costs to run anything. Like they love that. So then it attracts those people, and then asking them to say, okay, guys, you got to rethink this like fundamental assumption is kind of like, well, then they would just join another crypto.
Well, that's
how are they going to rework that?
That's the thing, is they didn't like they don't need to rethink the fundamental assumption, but what they do need to do is change their fundamental marketing angle, because the reality is that the system is neutral and fee free, and you're supposed to build for-profit businesses and services on top of it. The problem is that like the protocol shouldn't have fees attitude turned into like communism. Like nothing has fees, and then that just poisoned the whole ecosystem, where now it's like people start trying to do fees. I have seen people do like like they did a delegated proof of work system when they had the proof of work thing to anti-spam measure, where you could pay a very small fee to get your transaction pushed through right away. I'm like, oh, well, you introduce fee, that should be fine, right? Because the protocol doesn't have it, but you're bootstrapping. And then people hated that. Then they had a anonymous like built-in mixer kind of thing to do better privacy, kind of a custodial mixer, but still that didn't make enough fees, so they just abandoned it. So I think that's what they really need, is something like that.
All right. Well, we can't do a whole advice section for Nano. That'll have to be for another time. But do you have any other projects that you're seeing like similar to the advice you just gave to Nano then? Well, let's say with BCH.
Yeah.
What are you? How are you
Let's
seeing
hit eCash, right? Because we mentioned
eCash.
that.
All right, eCash first.
My like eCash at the time of the split seemed to have more demanded, needed features they're building in than BCH, and now it seems almost like the opposite, where it's just like, I like the transactions, I like the improved security model, I like the fact you have staking rewards, but then it's like, what else? Like, is there anything new on the privacy front? Well, no, we just have like a cash fusion. Okay. Well, if you have smart contracts, do you have apps? Do you have? It's just like, no, we just thought it's the same mentality that pre 2022, 2023 BCH might have had, that would be pushing it towards irrelevance, which is we're right about the block size wars. We changed the parameter that they did, and that's enough. We can just do nothing now. And so I kind of get the same vibe from that. Again, people are going to be losing their, at me. That's fine. Please prove me wrong. I'd love to see it grow, but I kind of feel like it's in that sort of a zone.
And what about BCH? Where are we getting things right, and where are we getting things wrong?
Yeah, so I kind of want to write an article on this. We kind of mentioned that, and this is sort of I'll give a little bit of a teaser on that. But I think the right things are, for the most part, first of all, I think that the funding, node implementation, and governance system is at least like built. There's something built there where it's not just haphazard, where it's like, all right, this is how we can propose upgrades. There are some node implementation teams that work independently. Here's a structured funding mechanism, even though it's not at the protocol level. And it's like now you have the engine for growth, and there you go. So now that really helps. And also I see the digital cash can't just be send thing from X to Y to Z, or Z if you're a communist. But then you can't just be like that. You have to do other things. And Bitcoin just became BTC, became undeniable enough to where people were fine to just be like, we'll build in all the other stuff, and we'll wrap it on this chain. We'll do the other stuff, but everything else sort of needs to earn its place to a certain extent. And so I think that all that is good. Doing wrong, I don't know. I don't have anything off the top of my head that's like because also I've heard a lot for everything that I would say. I've also heard the opposite being bandied about, as far as like I was talking for a while about like 10-minute block confirmations are going to be a thorn in people's sides as long as you need a confirmation for something. And I've heard talk about making shorter, like 1-minute blocks or something. I'm like, all right, well, that's a good improvement. And then just other opcode upgrades and things. I would like to see. What I would like to see is a all in on one killer use case / app where there's a certain amount when you do these this is something this is a general criticism across all of crypto, by the way. I can't think of a single crypto project that this would not apply to. Everyone at this stage still builds like proof of concept apps that you can go on stage at consensus and click some slides and be like, and it's all in the ledger and everyone claps, and then it just no one uses it and it sucks in it. Like
what about like prediction markets on Polygon or something like that? That is probably at that scale of like, okay, we actually did it. We stopped just making proof of concept.
Yes, and it actually works and has customers. And what else does Polygon do? So many different things, but no one cares because so many of these are larva stage. But now someone cares about Polygon. I do think, I don't know if I say a lot of things, so I could have said this before, I could have not said this before, but I'm pretty sure I said at some point that every single major cryptocurrency that's going to reach mass adoption is going to have to do so with one app first, where, for example, Polygon is the Polymarket chain, and then, well, Decred, they got the Bison wallet swap thingy, whatever. It's like that's the one thing they talk about a lot. And then like Litecoin, I don't know what Litecoin's deal is, the MWeb payment thing, and eCash has to have their own thing. And Monero's already got that. It's like the drug chain or whatever. It's like that thing. And who knows what with Zcash what their whole thing is, but someone needs something that like everyone goes to for you, and that's the reason why it happens. So what I said about proof of concept chains, apps, there's a lot of apps that are like minimum, like you can say it works and you can get some screenshots for a conference, and then that's about it. There's no depth to it. And so like I would kind of say it's like the memo.cashification of the space, where I use Memo for years. Memo works, it works, but like, is it going to take off? Probably not as on its own, the memo.cash interface alone. And it kind of feels like no one really pushed it beyond that. It's just like, all right, it works. People in the community use it and that's it. Whereas there's a lot of other apps out there like, oh, we got our own DEX. Okay, well, who trains? Well, our own 5 people. Okay, who else? And then all these UX problems. Well, that's good enough because our people like it. And no one like polishes it to like a mean machine where it just goes. And I do think people should sort of take hints from the Lightning Network world in some ways, where Lightning is a terrible product. It's just not meant to work really well. And yet some people have managed to get merchant experiences that aren't terrible if they're through these very narrowly defined custodial or not custodial, but like close to it kind of pathways. They managed to just brute force the UX and user appeal of it. And it's still not probably going anywhere, but at least it's somewhere today where you can show off to your friend, oh, look, I paid with my thing, and Steak and Shake. And so that kind of like, if that can be done with one of the worst built-in UXs in the world, then if you hone down one app that's like, it's just got to be better, more users, got to be better. And then all the rest of the ecosystem has to compete. Everything needs to compete with each other. It needs to be competitive.
Well, tell me about funding though, then, because that's the big difference is Lightning has one of the worst designs, but it also has one of the biggest communities and funding, just because price gains and VC money has just been raining down on the BTC community for them to just blow year after year after year after year for like the last decade. So they've had that advantage and they've made something kind of work out of that. For everyone else, you kind of got to do it with 2 pieces of string and a tin can. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you can't afford to just brute force things through. That's the difference.
Yeah. Now you can't afford to do that all in a chunk, but you can kind of quietly hone your craft time after time. And I guess there has to be like an entrepreneur who has a vision for something and says, this is the chain that works for me. This is the one that will work for what I want to do. And then just starts building it and constantly, on the grind, get other people, and then makes the sales pitch to other people. Look, you should invest in my product because XYZ it's going to do well. And then talks to the actual protocol developers and just says, hey, the latency on this is killing me, man. Like, what can we do about this? And then just obviously you can't have one entrepreneur run the chain, but you can have the valuable feedback of like, how do we build the base tech so it's useful to real people because we found a real person here. It's just that person has to just, or that company or that collection has to just see it through to the end of like, this is what we need to do, and just, kind of take off from there. Or alternatively, people in the Bitcoin Cash community, for example, can go find some app that's doing okay, but is like, should not be on whatever chain it's on, and just say, hey, we'd love for you to migrate to BCH. We will pay you, maybe. There could be that. But the biggest thing is, this is the pitch of why this makes sense. Like, this is like, listen, you're killing yourself doing this. If you do it this way, we'll provide all this dev support you want, everything, because once it runs on this, it's going to be magic. It's going to 5x your whatever, and just sell it. And the thing about sales, the secret to sales is you actually believe in your product. And the secret to actually believing in your product is your product doesn't suck. And so it all comes back down to the beginning of like, does this work? What does it work for? If it doesn't, if you can't make a good, strong sales pitch, fix it and then make your sales pitch and then get it. But it has to be something that it's not just, oh, it's nice to have. Like, well, I guess here's the big question, right? How many of you use a Bitcoin Cash app of some kind on a daily basis, like literally every single day, and you use it as a substitute for whatever the fiat centralized world thing is? So, for example, is there a social media thing you use instead of X, for example, that just every day you log in and just use it without thinking I should use it and tell the world I'm using it? You just use it. Or like you have like a DEX that you have, like you do some trades on it and stuff. And like every single day, it's like you watch Open Coin Market Cap, look at the charts, and you open up this DEX and be like, I'm going to move some stuff around. Just what is your daily driver app? And is there one? And if there isn't one, what's the closest? And then just turn it to where it's not a promo tool anymore. It's your life. Does it work for your life?
Yeah. No, I'm following all of that, and we can get back to that in a second. But on the point of like going to other people and saying, hey, come use our thing, it's better, like whatever you're doing is kind of not going to work. I have a perfect example. This is a little bit of drama, which I know you love, and me too. But it's from this guy, Abdul Stark, who made this post about how he was stepping down as head of ecosystem at Starkware, but I'm not fucking leaving Starknet. Did you see this? So what happened was one guy, let me, check, can you send it to Joel? But basically he said, oh, I'm leaving Starkware on Twitter or something. And then all these people came in to be like, oh, come join our thing instead, screw those guys. And then he was like, no, I actually was not leaving them at all. So I don't know why he needed to make a big post about it, like attention seeking or something. Anyway, Jerry replied to him and said, speaking of Bitcoin, what's with the hesitation in using Bitcoin Cash as a test net for Bitcoin potential? And he replied and said, quote, yeah, why not? But tell the Bitcoin Cash community if there is such thing to show excitement about this and to support it fully and push. There is only one Bitcoin, but I don't mind doing some experiments to anticipate future challenges or explore different paths, etc. End quote. And I just thought that was ridiculous. On one hand, he's kind of like, yeah, BCH has maybe some interesting things, like maybe I'll give it a look. But if I'm going to do that, you're going to have to, you're going to need to back it and be involved and help pump my bags, basically, right? And then he follows it up saying there is only one Bitcoin, which is basically like the fuck off you shitcoiners, type of vibe, right? You can't have it both ways. So if you're going to go to somebody else and say, hey, do you want to get involved in my thing? Come try BCH. The resistance you're going to get is going to be a lot of like this. where it's going to be like, yeah, maybe I could try it, but I feel like I'm in a powerful position, so I'm going to demand the world to get me on board. And even after I am, I'm just going to be a mercenary. Like, if you convert people through mercenary means, they show up with mercenary motivation, you know? Like, that's very different to building missionaries, you know?
Yeah, it takes kind of both kinds. There's a couple things I'm reading from that kind of comment, which one is reasonable and one isn't. The reasonable part, people shill things to me all the time. And it's every time I post something, hey, you should check out our thing. And it's always trash. It's so often. And now I used to be like, oh, yeah, right, I'll check everything out. And then I started hitting the point where I'm like, I can't do that anymore because I'm just going to waste my life on like drivel. And then I was like, well, I can ignore them, or I can ask a follow-up question as far as like, sell me on why this is different and better. And so, like, for example, Caspa's going to catch a stray here. Sorry, Caspa. I mean, it seems like a fantastic network other than that. But they're like, oh, you should check out this Caspa social thing, because I was talking about some social stuff. And so I looked at it and I'm like, what's the unique selling proposition? It's like, well, it all runs on chain. Like, great. Do you need to run your own node? Do you need to run your own indexer? How does that whole thing work? It's like, well, you can, if you want to use it in a decentralized way, you have to run your own infra. And then otherwise you can trust this community indexer that, you know, everyone does. And I'm just like, all right, that's cool, but it's not interesting to me now, because we can do better than that. We can do a decentralized social media experience where you own your own data, etc. And this is like, okay, this is very proof of concept-y, but like, it's not the next thing. And same thing as, I don't know if you've ever used Tree Chat. I have not yet, but Tree Chat is like, it's the Twitch successor on BSV.
Oh, they've got another one. They're back for round 5. Oh, man.
Yeah. Now Twitch will always have a soft spot in my heart because of some things like the troll toll. It was well engineered in some ways, and you know, the BSV part not so much, but whatever. And so they're like, oh, it's like that. Can I, you know, you should really use it. It's like the same Twitch stuff, but like the next level. I'm like, sure, I'll try it out. And then it turns out that there's no way to like just import your seed phrase private keys and get going. Like, oh, it's managed right now. It's email login. I'm like, I'm out. This is like we can do better than this in 2026, the year of Satoshi 2026. We can do better. And so therefore that follow-up question is like, what else? Like, you don't just say, my thing, give me attention, influence person. It's like, well, why? And if you can't answer the why, it just gets shut down. On the other hand, this person giving the BCH kind of, you know, there's a little bit of like, I have preconceived notions of why I don't think this is smart, and I'm just going to dismiss something that could be. I don't feel like this was a proper look, right? I don't think that there was a proper challenge of what is it that makes this worth it looking into it for me. I feel like it's just like, well, make it worth my while, and not a question, not is it worth my while. So I kind of feel like this is one of those like NGMI kind of situations where it's someone who's just not going to make it. They're just not going to get it. And someone else is going to have to build a competitor on something that actually works. And then they're just going to, you know, they're going to come over late and at a loss, and that's fine.
Exactly. Well, that's right. That's exactly what I think. That's exactly what I feel about a lot of this stuff, is just that kind of trying to attract people to BCH is a bit of a fool's mission if you do it in this way of like, oh, people are casting around for something or trying to convert them one way or the other. No, the reality is just the people who are already here are actually already smart and have some money. Let's just build something that, if anything is necessary, let's just build a better thing than they have. And then by the time it gets probably not as good, by the time it gets half as good or 3/4 as good, maybe they start paying attention. By the time it gets 1.5 times as good, they're going to start thinking, wait, what's going on here? And at some point, then they just have to switch teams, you know? Build it and they will come. I don't know.
But that's the thing, is like everything is stuff that's popular, whether it's a highly capitalized cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, BTC, whether it's just mainstream apps, massive user base. using that, building on that, whatever, isn't just inherently less risky because it's already defined, it's already there. Whereas something that's like Ghost Townsville, I didn't mean to hate on
Yeah, it's all
Townsville,
good.
but I just realized that sounded like I'm hating on Townsville. I'm not, but with Ghost Town kind of thing, that is massive opportunity, but also a lot of risk of like, does it take off or not? And then the smart builder, investor, whatever, will see unseen risk in the popular stuff, and we'll see like unseen opportunity in the not popular stuff. I mean, obviously not across the board, but so for example, I think that if you want to say, "Oh, I'm going to build on Solana because it's the biggest ecosystem," uh, sure, that we're one of the bigger ecosystems. It's like, all right, that's fine. I understand the low risk attitude towards that. But then you're like, I want to build in the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's like, well, if you know anything about Bitcoin, you know that it has a bunch of looming issues on the horizon and that no one is addressing, like the sustainability crisis.
They're not even trying
and-
to. That's the crazy thing. They're just pretending it's not happening, right?
Yeah, it's like classic procrastination where, at least when I procrastinate, I get really busy on other things, right? I just, well, I got to do this, so I can't do the thing I need to be doing. And I kind of feel like the privacy stuff to a little bit, but the knots stuff, like the CSAM, whatever you want to call it, that whole stuff, as well as the quantum computing stuff. Some of these are real problems, but they're also like, I do need to fold my laundry before I get to writing this budget proposal or whatever. And it's like, that's like laundry folding. It has to be done, but it's also not number one, which is your sustainability time bomb. How are you going to keep this engine moving long term? How are you going to keep growing? So I would see that as a massive risk. Ethereum's whole like messing around with L2s, they still haven't, they're kind of wishy-washy. Oh, help the L1 a little bit more. There just isn't this clear, like, how are you going to grow and continue to thrive long term? So I think also EVM has a bunch of weird exploits and stuff that it just, I think, are now coming to bear. Like, for example, the fact that tokens, anytime you send a token, you have to run that through a smart contract, which is inefficient. And then you have to grant token access, basically, that then can later be changed and just take all your money. It's not like just a very simple like native token where you just push and it sends. And so there's a bunch of those kinds of exploits and issues. And I don't know exactly what they're thinking of doing about it. And Vitalik kind of says some cool stuff and then he kind of goes away. And there's a lot more risk there. And then we go to like, I'm going to be really mean and chilly. I don't mean chilly, but if you compare like an eCash and a Dash, right, you can consider both, especially a year ago, let's say, because Dash has done a lot better in the last year. But like you compare the two, you're like, all right, there's a lot of similarities and they're both sort of like, not very capitalized right now. And you're looking at, okay, why would you care about either of these things? And then you look at potential and what they're building. And it's like, okay, well, they both have a lot of the same types of fundamentals. So they have growth potential in that, if that is cool. But is there something else? And then if you look in the Dash world, you see privacy advancements. You see this whole data contract system that no one else really has quite the same thing of. You see partnerships for payment things. And like, for example, just this last week, we onboarded 50 million merchants around the world that you can pay with Dash at. It's like, oh, well, that came out of nowhere. Where did that come from? Those kinds of things are like, oh, this is a risk that it could go to zero, right? It could not perform up to the big dogs. But it's also like, I see a lot of ways where this it's not as risky as you think. There's a lot of upside potential. So that's kind of where the attitude goes. I think people who are too focused on like what is popular now is just not going to keep their money. It's just not going to work out because it's already there. You don't have any vision of where it's going to go. So you're just reacting to the people who can figure out where things will be ahead of time. And so, which is always a risk, but you like, I don't know, like the other thing is I do think that you take significantly fewer risks if you focus on fundamentals and let that dictate where you go. Because if you understand it needs to be sustainable, it needs to have a sustainable design, it needs to be extensible, needs to be easy to use, needs to be secure, and like all these kinds of things. And then you just throw effort, money, whatever into those things, and then don't throw it into the ones that are safe but have problems with those things. Eventually, on the aggregate, a lot of your favorite projects will go to zero, but some of them will do really well. And I think on the aggregate, that's kind of what makes sense. Kind of where the space is like investing in privacy coins. It's like, which one's going to do better than the others? Who the hell knows? But they understand something is valuable in this sector. So if they throw money into the sector, it will do well.
So tell me a bit more about Dash. Where is that? You haven't really covered that at all yet. What's this Dash renaissance that you're telling us about? And I'm familiar with this idea of evolution, but I don't know the details. Walk us through what's going on there, what's going right and wrong.
Yeah, so I should say, I just think there's so many ways this could be approached, but a lot of Dash's hype from 2017 comes from this, that just took forever to get out there, and therefore that's dumpsville, So Evolution is a side chain to the main Dash network. It's run by the same like masternodes, et cetera. So it's part of the network, but it's a separate blockchain that's account based. It's data focused. It's kind of more loosely based on a Cosmos architecture, but pretty overhauled with like 1 second block times and things like that. So you can just get stuff published quickly. And the unique thing, because everyone has like a data chain or the ability to do data stuff these days, like tokens and stuff. The unique ability is the data storage system. It's mostly a metadata platform where it's great for writing metadata that is indexed and can be queried and returns a proof that you get what you queried. All kind of built in, and you don't need to run your own node or indexer. There's a decentralized API run by the master nodes you can just plug into and kind of do it. It's so basically it makes a lot of the basic kind of apps work like really well. Now the difference is like a lot of the crypto space has focused a lot on going to the smart contract stuff first, which is kind of like next level things. Obviously, if someone who has more knowledge on this can, correct me and tell me I'm wrong, but my basic understanding of like web and like these apps and things like that, there's kind of like 3 pillars. There's data storage, there's like metadata that, ties everything together, and then there's like computation or execution. And so typically you think like file storage, like IPFS, Filecoin, whatever else. That's your like big data storage kind of thing. The metadata part is something that I haven't really seen anyone else do really well, and that's the thing that Dash does really well right now. And computation, smart contracts, that's being looked into for the future, late this year, early next year. We'll see when that gets out. But basically, you can have a website running on the Evolution network with no backend server at all. It's just you query the network and it just brings the data you want. And so it's, for example, if you like look up your Dash username, you can just type in whatever and it queries all the possible usernames and brings it up automatically at the network level. There's no server that's doing it, just the network's feeding you that data. Who are my contacts? Just in a second, it brings all that stuff up. So it's just kind of that basic stuff that will allow these like apps that either are super clunky, the like blockchain apps that are either super clunky or they're super centralized, to kind of be neither, just kind of smooth and work. And of course, the first few things are stuff like usernames, contact list, all that kind of stuff, but then also expanding to like social media sites. There's a proof of concept app out there called Yapper, YPPR, on yp.pr is the URL on testnet. And it's like an X clone. You have encrypted DMs. You can register many usernames on the protocol level for your one profile, so they can look you up under all your aliases, like you do Jeremy BCH, the BCH podcast, whatever, and it'll take you to the same profile. Your contacts are on the network as well. You got hashtags, of course, on the network, and a bunch of other cool features. So yeah, it's basically, we're looking forward to building a bunch of like the more low level like web apps that are actually built on decentralized data. And it would be really cool to unite with other projects that have other missing pieces, like connect to Filecoin or something like that, connect to something with smart contracts, and create kind of a integrated ecosystem. But basically, this goes back to the whole circular economy kind of thing, where by being like Monero is a good example because Monero is kind of like the OG Bitcoin vision of peer-to-peer, like agorism, gray markets, sometimes black markets, whatever kind of commerce. And the reason why it works is because you can't just go from fiat to that. Some of the stuff is spicy, so you need an internal thing of like, I need to sell this for Monero, I need to buy it with Monero kind of thing. And so when you have expenses and income in whatever your digital money is, then it becomes a circular economy, really. Then it becomes not, I have to buy a big pile of Bitcoin and then I have to spend it and sell it to spend. And then it's like, well, fiat is your currency. It's your in and your out. And you just dip into Bitcoin for some reason. Maybe number go up. I don't know. But eventually it's like, anytime anyone uses my data contract or writes to this, whatever, fees come through in Dash to me. And then if I want to instead of paying web hosting, I pay the Dash network to host all my like documents and blog posts and stuff. And then it just goes in there. And that's when you get that circular economy and everything starts to work out. So it's something we're going to hopefully see some big moves on this year. Like obviously Yapper is a very cool proof of concept for now, but there's a lot of other stuff you can do, like marketplaces, like you can, there's a torrent indexer that was built as a proof of concept. So basically like the Pirate Bay, but every time the Pirate Bay gets taken down or whatever, you have to re-index all the torrents from scratch, all the metadata, all the searchability, everything. Or you can just mirror the site a bunch of times on other places but again, if you take down all those, then you just kind of like have to re-index from zero. But now all that stuff can be on the Dash network, for example. And then like marketplaces like Craigslist style things and other things. So it's going to be pretty fun to see all that stuff kind of come together under like the unified like login keys, whatever. And just, some fun stuff in the future.
So where did this all come from? I'm looking at the price chart now. September, Dash was $23, $21, and today it's $87. So there's a bit of an infusion of capital into the community. But if you said like Dcash, for example, in comparison, and maybe not cooking up all this different stuff at the same time, like there's only so many hours in the day, so many money, so many cryptographers. Where did all this stuff get funded for? Like what changed that suddenly Dash is working out better?
So the real thing, and by the way, I have been telling the Dash community to look into these kinds of things because like, I think the whole world who paid attention saw that 2023 cash tokens and then saw a price increase not long after. It's like you proved to have shipped something real. And now it's like, okay, now you get rewarded a little bit later. And so the evolution upgrade was shipped, the mainnet activated September 2nd of 2024. And the thing is, it was basically in 2022, the team mostly in charge of a lot of development was sort of voted off the island because of non-delivery and other things. And so the current mastermind on the evolution side of things, at least Quantum Explorer, he basically said, look, I'm gonna get this shipped. If it's just me and no one else, I'm gonna work 60 80-hour weeks just getting all this thing done. And at some point in the early mid 2024, he put like a masternode vote out there of should we just, it's not basically like it's not done yet. Should we do an accelerated release or a when it's done kind of release? And the accelerated release is just, will it stay stable on mainnet? Like, will it actually work? But not, is it smooth? Not, are all the dev tools out there? And so the community, I wouldn't say overwhelmingly, but strongly voted for closer release. So it's not like it wasn't like a polished release then. There was still a lot of like, well, we have no SDKs built, no libraries. Like we tested these things out. They work in theory, but there's a lot of things that prevent developers from building on it. And so that's kind of why everything's sort of wrapped up for the most part around later last year, I guess, like late last year, stuff started to be like, okay, now we can launch this. And so, for example, in middle of 2025, um, Quantum Explorer spent a day maybe or a few hours, and he built this Yapper thing, which is like just a basic proof of concept, kind of like Memo.cash level of a social media site. And he said, look, I can do all this, no backend server, yay. And then he didn't touch it for 6 months. And then another developer, oddly enough, the Pasta, the one who runs the core side of things, the UTXO stuff, he just got bored and he started playing around with Yapper. And then, so that's like 18 days ago, 16 days, like just like 2.5 weeks. And now it's come to have like a very broad feature set, I would say, where it's like competitive with, I wouldn't say like all the way to like X, but like an 80% of the way kind of thing. And because it's a lot easier to build on the platform. And so I kind of think that you have all this confluence of things together of, oh, there's actually something cool that's being built. There's also the whole thing of like on the onboarding stuff I've been working really hard on. There's also the fact that there's we're working on a privacy upgrade, and a generous donor donated 488 Monero to fund this. And that all that kind of came out around that time. So I think people are saying like, oh, there's motion. It's not just we're building, yay. It's like, oh, this is usable. This is, someone's actually like not saying we're going to do cool things, but they started to happen. And it's like, okay. And we can't ignore, of course, the Zcash privacy pump era, where Zcash also had a lot of a renaissance in a lot of ways, but unlike the other ones, I believe they partnered with a lot of like big name KOLs and did some viral marketing stunts and some other things, and then also got listed on Near Intense and Hyperliquid kind of at the same time, and then just had that catalyst, and then everyone's, oh, it's privacy season, and then all the privacy coins start to pump, and then you start to say, well, Digibyte too, even though it's not a privacy coin, like all the OG coins. So that's kind of like the big, if I were to retroactively speculate on why we had why things popped off after on that timeline, that's kind of what I would say.
All right, well, we'll get back to the Zcash stuff in a minute because I do want to touch on that. But firstly, tell me a little bit about this 50 million merchants, the onboarding or whatever that's going on there, and sort of other fundraising and other things that you just alluded to right there in terms of other things that you've been working on, maybe outside the technical stuff, maybe more on the community or the sort of outreach sales side. What are you doing there and what's working?
Yeah, so basically, this is one of those things where like the whole live on crypto thing has been a blessing in that it sort of informs a lot of like targeting for me, where I'm like, okay, what do I need to be able to do things? And so one of the things we started, and this was before I started full time in Dash at the beginning of 24, was start to identify bill pay services, because bills were one thing I always had difficulty with, like rent and things like that. And so we got onboarded to Spritz Finance in the US, Zipto within the US and a lot of places, already on Swappin in Europe, and then there's a few others around the world. Funny enough, BitRefill has integration. They have an offering for a company called BitFairies, which works in Australia. And so we have an Australian friend of mine who pays all his bills with Dash through a BitRefill integration, etc. So once we have like bills, now a big chunk of the world, you could pay all your utility bills with Dash. And then it's like you combine that with like, okay, now we have a few other like spending tools that let you do day-to-day kinds of things. And now you could conceivably use this as like mostly your money. And so that kind of crossed all those things out. Now, as far as the user experience, there is a function called, loosely called Dash Spend. There was a prototype called Dash Direct several years ago, but it's basically built into the Dash wallet where you can buy. It's going to include non-gift card things, but right now there's a couple different gift card providers built in to where if you want to go buy like a burrito at Chipotle, you go and how much is it? 1087, 1087, hit buy, and you get the QR code, the barcode to scan, and you can just go from Dash in the exact amount you need to the end product you want in like a couple seconds. It just works, and sometimes you get some significant discounts as well. So that spending tool, I'm sure, really helped it out, where now you can run around spending it. There's also we partnered with a company, a blockchain project called Zebek, which is really kind of on the up and up right now, which is it's a card provider to a certain extent. So there's a couple of cards, including a reloadable private card, which is really rare to have in crypto. And so you can get a virtual card, anonymously, put it on your phone, and then just top it up with Dash, and you can just load it as you go. It's not a single load thing. So that kind of covers the in-between part. And then also we're getting integrated into their payroll engine. So hopefully you should be able to, if you have a fiat company, you should be able to pay your employees straight in Dash for rates that are much more competitive than like an exchange, for example. It's so kind of like setting all those pieces up. There's been a fantastic help to the community. Daria, or Web3 Daria, Dasha, of course, as she goes by, who's been running around to conferences that I can't make it to, and doing a really great job of like forming connections for these integrations. And that's where this Eon Pay came from. And Eon Pay is some company that I hadn't really heard too much about, to be honest, but essentially is built into a lot of merchants in Southeast Asia, some parts of Africa, and Latin America, where a lot of the countries where it's supported, it's kind of like, if you'd remember from the was it Zapit? Was that the name of the wallet in the BCH wallet?
Yeah,
from
in
like
India,
the Zapit days.
UPI,
Yeah, so basically the UPI version of all these countries is kind of like getting integrated into that, because I've been sort of talking to them where trying to see if I could get merchant listing data to put in a merchant map. And it's like, yeah, but like in some of these countries, it's like 85% of the merchants are just everyone kind of will take it. So it's almost not worth putting on a map. And so that's for like, I think they said 50 million merchants total starting to grow in. And that's in some of their wallets, like say OKX wallet, and there's a Telegram mini app that does this. I'm looking into getting the integration directly into the Dash Pay wallet itself. So it's kind of all in the same thing. And as a side note on the whole payments thing, this is where, for better, for worse, this is where I see things going, is where you can just scan a regular QR code and it's like a BIP21 type thing where it just does the address and the amount you send. That's becoming increasingly, like decreasingly, the way things happen in crypto. I remember there was the whole Connect a Wallet era where you have like MetaMask or something, Wallet Connect, something like that to pay. Wallet Connect Pay just announced some many millions of merchants kind of thing through stable coins only, but we'll see if they change from that. But anyway, then of course Flexa, I'm sure you've heard about Flexa. I think it supports BCH. It must. It's big in the Zcash world. It's some payment thing in the US. Again, has to be integrated into the wallet. So again, for anyone who's developing a wallet meant for payments should definitely pay attention to this part. But like, there's a bunch of different payment protocols, just like BIP70, but like more, that the smart cash wallet will want to integrate into to be able to pay everywhere. And DFX in Switzerland also has like a few hundred grocery stores that accept crypto, not yet Dash. I'd love to get Dash on board at some point. But Monero is one of them, interestingly enough, that you can just, if it's integrated into like Cake Wallet or something, you could scan and just send. So that's kind of like my Infinity Stone type thing, is like, we got the bill pay, we got a few spending tools for gift cards and discounts. Then we got a couple prepaid cards and stuff that work all around the world. And it's like, now the next thing is all these API integration things that gets you onboarded into a ton of different merchants. And so, yeah, unfortunately, Square is going to be one of the last ones to go because of Jack Dorsey's unfortunate maximalism. But hopefully we get some solution for that too.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting stuff. And it's like, in a little bit, my heart is soaring in a way, because it's sort of, I think, the future that you and I were wanting is starting to arrive, in the sense that for many, many years, crypto, this gambling blah 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 sideshow, like everyone is just off track. But now, in aggregate, between the size and global clout of crypto, plus enough sort of payment focused coins plugging away at it year after year after year after year, it sounds like among all of that, it's kind of getting to the point that the people on the other side, the merchant payment networks and the card providers and all that, are slowly saying to be okay, well, we need to have integrations for this kind of stuff. And at first, it's going to be a bit piecemeal, and it's going to be hard to use, and it's going to be some coins and not others, and yada, yada, yada. But just the economic wheels are churning for long enough and now at a great enough size that it's worth them, talking back. It's not like going to them, hey, accept crypto, accept crypto. It's like they're starting to be like, we need to have a crypto strategy. We need to accept this stuff. People are paying with it. And the culture of people is just kind of like, this is just the way things are done now. We're really starting to get to that. And sounds like, yeah, you're on the forefront of a lot of that stuff, which the BCH community maybe doesn't have in its, purview so much at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I've been in the space for a very long time, and I have a lot of nostalgia behind the mom and pop merchant onboarding, where you get your local grocer, your local whatever to do it, and they pull out a wallet. You're like, oh, this is awesome! I paid straight in this, and this is what Satoshi envisioned. There's always that, and I kind of feel like the BCH community is one of the best at doing this for a while, and I think the Monero community is one of the best at doing it right now, where almost all of the Monero adoption is very peer-to-peer-ish like that. It's very much like that. And it gives you warm fuzzies, right? And the thing about crypto is so, as payments, I'm going to be blunt, is largely irrelevant today. Maybe not so much in a year or two, but so irrelevant today. The only reason you can get people activated is through the warm fuzzies. But unfortunately, the warm fuzzies is the hard work of onboarding. And I've kind of, I've had to, letting go of the past is always hard to do, right? Especially if it's something you love and you care about. I've had to sort of evolve my mental model of how this is going to work, where I thought, okay, we onboard direct Dash acceptance or direct crypto acceptance, let's just say, into all these different mom and pop merchants. We build a master database, a merchant map, and it's all going to be great, and it just works. And then, that the mom and pop wave died after the 2017 era. It just wasn't sustainable. It's just, oh yeah, we got everything. It just too much work, too much fragmentation. And I still have a soft spot for that. I still pay like my jujitsu guy, I still pay my barber, still go get coffee and croissants at Maison Navarre. I still do all that just straight like wallet to wallet, and it makes me feel great inside. But that's not the way the world went. And there is this sad, exciting but sad, depending on who you want to, what perspective you want, of the last few years, this epic of basically the intermediary digital cash era, where now it's like anyone can live on a few different kinds of digital cash, but you need to use this bill pay company that will help pay bills for you. You need to buy gift cards. You need to do prepaid cards. All these tools, which I would have been ecstatic about in 2013, 14, 15, to have that level of support, and I still should be, but it just doesn't feel as good when you're doing that. And now we're getting on to kind of the halfway between that and the mom and pop like redux, where now it's getting integrated into payment software, but at a mass scale, not always in the most pure way, but kind of like the Apple Payification of things, where now you do get to actually use your crypto directly. You don't have to do a gift card or some janky thing like that. It just works, but you still have to like finesse some integrations. It might not be all wallets, and then you start to see which standards kind of permeate. And so that's the next thing for me. Again, this is the big like alpha, I guess, is like my mental model is everything I'm targeting are things like that you can integrate into the Dash Pay wallet, so you can just pay at, again, another 50 million merchants here or there. So like DFX in Switzerland is one that I'm looking at. Again, we'll see if we can get something done. There's a lot of uncertainty in Europe around crypto right now, so there's that. Then there's like obviously the Eon Pay, there's Flexa in the US, and there's a couple others that like scan. You can build the payment protocol into the wallet, and then you can just pay from your wallet directly to the merchant. And once you collect all those, you get a big like 50 million at a time or whatever. And for someone who's been working a lot on these like merchant map type things, it's sad for me to admit that the era of merchant maps is sort of over. Like the utility of those, it's kind of more like, is there like a friendly merchant? Like the merchant map makes more sense of who loves this stuff and is going to keep the crypto. And it's just a fun thing, but it's not necessary to live off of. We're going to be onboarding integrations where you won't have to know, where do I spend it? You can just go and spend it. And so we're kind of skipping the whole merchant map era to mass adoption. So that's kind of where I see the payment side going.
Yeah, very interesting. I think that's something, the BCH community that I haven't been thinking about, in how many hours of the day are there, but that's an area that's maybe going to come big in the next year or two. It's suddenly going to be like every coin's business development or strategy or whatever needs to factor in. And sounds like you're killing it and you're leading the way on a lot of that stuff. So that's something, given the BCH community actually is in a good spot to take on this kind of project, because there's not infighting, a lot of the protocol stuff has been sorted, etc. So the wallets, we already have a bunch of wallets. Like a lot of stuff is actually prepared for us to be a part of this kind of transition, but we'll need to be smart about how we do it. But because of course, everything has an opportunity cost. Tell me a little bit about Zcash. What happened there? So I don't know all of the details exactly, but not only did they have a huge pump, and you can maybe give some thoughts on how you already did a bit, but how sort of organic or not that was, but also then they have recently had some kind of internal community splintering, civil war type of stuff, where there was the whole team quit was kind of the headline. I feel like that was maybe at least partially inaccurate, but there was some truth to the fact that there was infighting going on and splintering. Then that's kind of a bad thing in a way if it leads to ongoing resentment and maybe later has fallout or people rage quitting or somehow they can patch it up. I haven't followed all this stuff at all, but I know you have. So if you can, just give us a breakdown of what's going on there.
So first, to get a little bit of the idea of the demand for Zcash, the thing that it's done very well is it has created tech. It has created what I would call the front-running privacy tech. And of course, there's a bunch of different approaches. I think we need a lot of different technologies because you can't just have one dependency, right? It needs to work. But it is worth noting, of course, that Zuko, the founder, did communicate with Satoshi during like the early days, like directly. And Satoshi referenced one of the top, Daria Hopwood, one of the top Zcash developers' work, not in the white paper, but in a blog post on a Bitcoin Talk post, I should say. So there's like the technical chops and the amount of projects that are building on Zcash Orchard shielded technology or whatever is like starting to go really high. There's that. Then Zcash, despite being like a, UTXO, like proof of work sort of OG coin, had an element of like VC stuff where in the first few years there was something called the Founders Reward, where the block reward went to people who bootstrapped the funding of the thing. And that hasn't been a thing for a very long time. It's much more like a, decentralized funding mechanism today. I'll kind of go into some of that. But the point is, a lot of big names became bag holders, right? For lack of a better term, right? Where you have like the Winklevoss twins, for example. You have a digital currency group. You have a bunch of other big name people have a lot of interest in seeing it succeed. So when they want to move things, they can move things. So that's just important context. So Zcash had issues with wallet issues around 2023 with the sandblasting attack, and it wasn't really super useful, and they didn't have much going on to be able to get this used at scale. When Josh Swire came on my show on the January of 2024, and he took over as the new Electric Coin Company CEO, he basically just said, we have a turnaround. These are our goals. And they accomplished all those goals in under 2 years after that. And part of that is they had like an actual, like the Zcash Selene, right? The actual like flagship just works kind of wallet that integrated a lot of cool things. And they got into a lot of DEX integrations, and they got the actual syncing working, the wallet actually just moving. And then they partnered with a bunch of KOLs and marketing agencies and stuff to really get the pop. And so it's like that confluence of all those things of this is the technology works. The technology is bridged to just about everything through the near intense kind of integration to where if someone went to like Townsville or somewhere like that with a strong BCH presence and all they had is the Zashi wallet, they could just spend it because they would scan the QR code, hit go, and it would take a while because a few minutes because of swaps, but they would be able to pay even though they didn't have any BCH themselves. So that's a great value add. And then you start adding tradability on all these platforms, and then you start hitting all of that combined. Also hit on this encrypted Bitcoin narrative, which is kind of how it was pitched. And we all here have been complaining about deficiencies in BTC for a long time. Of course, none of this is new. But as I've mentioned before, I don't think that any kind of a capitulation, I think the capitulation of the blocks aren't big enough is just not going to happen with Bitcoin. It's kind of like the small blockers won that narrative battle permanently, sort of internally at least. And so any kind of a challenge to Bitcoin's throne comes from the sides. And one of those sides is privacy. And the other, of course, quantum resistance, right? That's another one. But so that really caused a lot of people, because the idea of Bitcoin being you can buy it and no unconfiscatable money. But if someone knows how much you have, it's a lot easier to confiscate. So it's like encrypted Bitcoin is like the ultimate unconfiscatable money in a concept. And that concept really took off. And then there were some influencers as well, like Mert of Helios Labs, one of the biggest Solana ones, who's just has been shilling Zcash nonstop, very aggressively, and he's been rewarded for it, which is nice. So that's kind of a confluence of everything. It's a idea whose time has come. Things have started to go well. Now, at the founding era, Zcash had a company called the Zcash Electric Coin Company or something, or the Zcash Company, rebranded to Electric Coin Company, the main dev team. And they were getting a lot of the dev fund for a while. Then it was something like a 3% them and 7% Zcash Foundation split, where some of it was going to another organization called the Foundation, which administered some grants and did a separate client maintenance, whatever. Now, I believe, I don't know if it's implemented today in the code base. It might be. I'm not 100% sure about the timelines, but the money is all going to a lockbox, or a lot of it's going through like a lockbox, where now all the dev teams have to sort of apply for retroactive funding, and there's like a group of people that vote to sort of unlock it. So it's not all the way full DAO now, but it's progressively decentralizing, which I guess is a great kind of thing. Now, what happened with this whole mutiny thing, there's a lot that hasn't been publicly said that I don't fully know about yet, but to me, it seems like the Electric Coin Company was a subsidiary of a nonprofit called Bootstrap. And when you have a nonprofit organization, you get to any donations towards that are, of course, tax-free, and any revenue the nonprofit makes is not taxed because it's not revenue, it's not a profit. And so you'd only have to pay taxes. The individuals being paid would only do that. So it makes sense that a nonprofit would run this. And I guess there's a lot of restrictions on tech nonprofits on how they can grow. What can they raise capital? Can they earn capital? So OpenAI is going through this whole thing right now, because OpenAI was created as a nonprofit and then has become a wildly profitable company through ChatGPT and all that. How does that make sense? And they've had some legal challenges because of that. And so I would think it's kind of something similar to that, where Josh viewed it as a decelerator, right? Decelerant, where you can't grow as fast as long as they're under this nonprofit thing. Unfortunately, his entire company was run and owned by this nonprofit. And so he just said, you know what? I'm going to start my own thing with hookers and blow, sort of thing, and where I can just grow. And that's kind of what happened. I don't know why there was so much drama back end where you just had to like quit all of a sudden and start something. But those are kind of all the pressures that sort of went into that. And it is sort of telling to see who was sharing his announcement of creating this new entity, like the Winklevoss twins and stuff like that. There might be some back end like funding. So I think Zcash is going to do more than well. It's just that it's a little bit of an annoying bump in the road, but it's also like, it's kind of like Bitcoin.com no longer ruling Bitcoin Cash sort of thing. That's like, now it's like, all right, now we got other things involved.
Well, that's right. That's where I'm trying to get the sense of, are they going to have a chain split? Are there bootstrap loyalists who are kind of like, screw these guys and they're reworking things in an unfair way, or like that wasn't the deal, or something. Is there two sides? Like there was controversy, so there must be two sides. What's the split look like?
Yeah, I think that I would give a 0% chance of any kind of a chain split kind of thing. I don't know what Bootstrap is going to be doing now. There's always a chance that they might just wind down, or that they keep running a different implementation or a separate wallet or something. But right now, the major Zcash organizations, it used to be Zcash company, Electrocoin company, and that's it. And then it was them and the foundation. And now, as of present, there's Bootstrap, there's the new company, then there's still the foundation, and then there's an organization called Shielded Labs where Zuko, the founder, and his brother and some other people work, and that's entirely not funded by the network Block Rewards. It's a separate thing. And then there's Tachyon, which I don't know if it's more than one person, but this person, Sean Bowe, who's a very smart researcher, is sort of self-funded to do scaling research and stuff on Zcash. So there's like 5 major organizations right now that are all sort of doing things, which is a lot better than it was before. So it's the one organization. The biggest organization is the one that sort of had the drama that turned it from 4 to 5, I guess. But there's a few different groups running around right now.
So, I mean, that's a good sign, obviously, of decentralization, and there's sort of this similar process going on in BCH in a way, like you said, in the wake of Bitcoin.com used to dominate it a lot. They've been out of the scene for the last 3-4 years. All kinds of other things have been slowly starting to pop up and so forth. So that's a good sign of a decentralized economy. The catch is then it creates politics, right? And that's where I'm trying to get at is this Zcash stuff, is it going to create resentment and issues down the road that's going to lead to somebody having a rage quit, or is it just going to, usually the cost of that spreading out is then potentially losing network effect or momentum or getting mired in politics instead of delivering stuff before, right?
Yeah, from my understanding, and I do know some people who worked for ACC and now work for the new organization, and they're being a little tight-lipped about the details, but they're just like, everything's fine, we're just doing a move over. I think that the biggest cost is the public spat. If I were to do something, I would have said nothing, moved over to a new organization, got everything figured out, and then come in with this thing. Hey, by the way, the team is doing this, Bootstrap is still doing that, and kind of have, even if it's a hostile situation, find a way to have like a joint, almost like a joint statement, or a statement that like both sides are okay with, where it just makes it seem like even if there was fighting, you don't want, if there's governance problems, like should we increase the block size, those kinds of things need to be public, and if they get ugly, they get ugly. It just is. But if it's internal drama, you should keep a lid on it if you can. Just keep it to your own internal mechanisms, and that's probably what I would have done. The thing that was the biggest uncertainty was Electrocoin Company launched the Zashi wallet, which is the flagship wallet for Zcash. Kind of everything is just like Zashi. And when the team left, now they're no longer able to run the wallet necessarily. And so now it's like another wallet that just gets like nuked and is like not, and I have to start from zero with a new product. Like that's the fear, I guess. I've heard the new team saying that they will still be doing support and stuff for Zashi, but it sounds like there could be, I should say, another wallet, another Zcash wallet that then again you have to start onboarding people from zero to this wallet. And so for me, that's the sad part of this situation. Everything else just seems necessary / optimistic. And the sad part is the wallet fragmentation, I think.
All right. Okay. Well, and where should people go? I mean, maybe you've done some shows about this. I watched one that you did recently about it. If people want to dig more into the details of all this, because obviously we don't have time here, what would you recommend them to look at?
Yeah, you could watch the show that I did with Shield and Mark on Digital Cash Rundown. That was fun, but it basically says what I've said here. It's interesting. What I would do is I would look also at cashz.org, which is kind of funny. Zcash, CashZ, whatever, which is basically gives their side of the story of starting the new thing. They're launching a new wallet, and they say they have like an early access list. They got like 82,000 signups so far. So that's like 82,000 pre-downloads is not bad.
That's a lot.
So I guess they're going to do okay. But yeah, just follow. Basically, I would just follow. X is a great place for news, unfortunately. So just follow the key players in there, like Josh Speier and stuff like that, and you'll get the alpha.
Okay. All right. Moving right along, then we've got the DashCon conference to not announce exactly, but discuss. So first off, we've done a little deal. We're doing some wheeling and dealing before the show. Bliss and DashCon are going to do a very minor little partnership where, of course, I love a lot of the work you do in crypto. I think it's going to be a great event. So I'm looking forward to going along. And in return, you're going to help hype up Bliss, of course, both communities getting the opportunity to learn from the other. The Layla ticket sale will be starting on February the 15th. So anybody who's interested in Bliss, just keep that on your radar. That will be coming in the next month. And probably, I don't know, we haven't sold out before, but I'm feeling good about selling out this year. There's definitely a lot more interest than I saw the last 2 years, but regardless, they probably won't sell it instantly. But if you want a good Layla, I recommend being ready for Feb 15th. In any case, we are partnering, and it will be in May, of course, as always, with the upgrade 15th to 17th. Now, DashCon is going to be in Amsterdam in September. So talk me through this event. How did this come about, and what's your involvement?
Yes. So for context on Dash conferences, there have been a few in the very early days. They ended up being like large produced, the treasury spent a ton of money on them kind of things for previous teams. And they ended up being pretty cool. But it wasn't, then money got a little tighter after the 2017 era, and there just weren't any planned. In 2019, the end of September, there was a Bitalo, which is a Swiss crypto company, decided to hold the Dash Convention Europe in Zurich, and basically self-funded / got sponsors for like most of it. And I think they did get a small treasury reimbursement, but for the most part, it was a very lean conference. After party was in Munich at Oktoberfest. It was quite a fun conference. It was a lot of good memories from those days. Again, 2019. And then there was some uncertainty in 2020, as everyone knows. And there just hasn't been a proper Dash conference since then. I did host a small event called Dash Fest in Merrimack, New Hampshire, 2022, I think, which was just like a one-day get-together at a brewery. And it was like 60 people, 80 people, somewhere in that range came. So that was a good event, but it was minor. We haven't had an actual conference, and I thought might as well have a conference. I got to do it. And so I'm thinking my entire ethos since getting back into things here has been like sustainability. And so, for example, Obviously, I'm funded by the Dash Treasury to do my day job and then run some ad campaigns and some other things like that we do. But I've been trying to do as much as I can external to the Treasury, run it community, donations, business stuff, etc. So, like, for example, the crypto quorum space that we do is sponsored by Edge Wallet. So we get a little bit from that. And then I do a lot of like 50-50 deals with companies and things of like, we'll do a lot of promo for you if you integrate, and just try to keep it as lean as possible. And the entire Dash privacy overhaul is completely not Treasury funded. It's completely a variety of different donations, as well as Power Up Privacy give us a generous grant, and we're looking at other options as well. And DashCon is kind of the same thing. I think I'm going to run a Dash conference, but I'm going to make it entirely entirely like self-funded, and I don't have to ask for donations. It's not going to be a charity event. It's going to be a real crypto conference. And so who better to help than people of my also favorite conference I always go to, which used to be called ETHDAM, is now called Common Sense, because it's not so commonsensical to be focusing on ETH these days as a cypherpunk vibe. But so every year in Amsterdam, they have this conference, and I thought, okay, I'm going to partner with Crypto Canal, and we'll sort of co-run the events, and I'll still decide like we'll kind of share the venue, do the one day before during this thing called Cypherpunk Week, where there might be other conferences and things like that during this whole week, kind of package the thing together and just, share sponsors in some ways, share organization, just kind of get those network effects behind this. And obviously my goal is to get a good chunk of people showing up for DashCon, but it's also a lot easier if you get people in there for the week and they're just like, hey, you're here a day early, pop into this thing, and then there it goes. So it's going to be, other than a one-day highlight of the Dash community ecosystem, kind of where we're at and everything like that, I'd like to do a couple hallmarks. Are first off, I want to have a media area for this, and that was one of the best parts about the Dash Convention Europe in 2019, was there was a whole like podcast studio room that was just constantly in use during the entire thing. So people are doing talks. Anytime you're not doing talks, you have like a media room and invite podcasters and bloggers and stuff like that to go through and kind of run that. So we're doing that. And also Common Sense holds a hackathon every single time. And so I kind of feel like this is a great opportunity to slip in some Dash hacking in there as well, and just kind of have that thing. So nothing is decided yet, but hopefully the idea is next year, 2027. I know we just started this one, but what about second year?
Yes.
We might try to do a Common Sense DashCon combo somewhere in the US instead. So that's kind of my ambition, is to locally create a big enough, thriving enough crypto group that we then can use that as a launch pad to this greater kind of thing. And then the other thing, as we mentioned with this whole partnership thing, is I would really like to co-promote with as many different conferences as we can, where we all sort of, my bet is that every crypto community has a silo of users, and there's a lot of trash projects out there, right? There's just a lot of not good stuff. I kind of think that anyone who cares about the good stuff in crypto, the actual decentralization, cypherpunk values, all that kind of stuff, should sort of band together a little bit. And the odds are that it's a shared audience, where, let's just say, Paul from Edge Wallet. I'm sure Edge Wallet, I mean, they're going to Monerotopia, they're going to all those kind of Monero conferences and like Anarchapulco and those things, but then also DashCon, also Common Sense, all these things. It's like someone like Paul is not a one conference type person. And so I kind of figure the pool of, if everyone who cares about these basic principles that push all of our movements here, if they're all aware of all the other conferences, they should pop in and do whatever they want. And so this kind of happened with ETHDAM, again, proto Common Sense, I guess, last year, where like I invited some Bitcoin Cash people over. I think I gave Matthew a ticket to come over, Matthew Gerkins, and a few other people from other communities came as well. And I think that there's a lot can be learned. And there were some Cardano developers who showed up at the Dash booth and were like exchanging some notes about what we'd like to see on like development stuff here and there. And there is, as you know, kind of like the parting note on this thing, I think the spirit of open collaboration exists in crypto development ecosystems. When you have the devs are just always like the scientists that just like care about the science, kind of. And so it's like, oh, what are you doing in this? Oh, this is how they do this. They refactor this code to do that. And like the backporting from BTC, for example, of any Bitcoin-based projects does happen, even while maybe the front and the marketing end of these projects might be saying, oh, they suck, we're great. There's like collaboration. I know Bitcoin Cash developers have contributed to the Bitcoin code base after the split, including finding critical bugs. Same thing with Dash developers. There's quite a few commits from the Dash side to the Bitcoin side as well. And so that spirit of open collaboration, even if you're building potentially competing products, I think is something that we could really learn from. Of like, hey, did you hear what those guys are doing over there? Well, if we did it, it would be 10 times better than what they're doing. Can we do that? All right, sure. And just, you know, everyone should sort of be in each other's business just a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense. So I guess, yeah, just as a conference organizer, then how's it been so far? Has it been challenging? Has there been anything that's surprised you or caught you off guard, or has been a lot easier than you expected maybe so far in your journey of conference organizing?
Well, of course, anytime you do anything that's not yourself, there's always external dependencies. And the original Common Sense date was in middle of like June 12th to 13th. So it was June 11th. And it turns out that EthCC is around the same time and it's doing a very big event. And so basically with a lot of sponsors and other things who were usually ETHDAM/Common Sense sponsors were like not going to be there. And so it just made the decision of like, let's not compete with some big thing. Let's make this a maximal, like a big pop. And so obviously having to change the date and work together, there's other people you have to consider. That's always challenging. But we had the other thing is previous years I have helped the Crypto Canal people recruit not only like attendees, but also recruit like sponsors in some cases. So I've kind of already done some of this type of work already for them. So I'm pretty sure that we can make something work pretty well. I'm confident we can get a good thing. The thing I'm not as confident in, but it's a goal of mine, is I want to hit like the 200 attendee mark for just DashCon. And then because Common Sense tends to be 300-400 people, something like that, and for the 2-day event. And I'm like, well, my goal is like, we got to get at least 100. But I'm like, what if we got 2? 2 is better than 1. Let's see what we can get going. So I'm shooting for 200. If we can get a 200 person 1-day conference, I think that that'll be pretty good. I think that that'll be satisfactory. And then maybe next year we shoot for like a 2-day DashCon, 2-day Common Sense, and see where we're going. It depends on what time is right for what kind of growth. But the point is, I think that a lot of times when you have a big capitalized ecosystem, you tend to spend all that on ecosystem growth. And then when the money runs out or runs shorter and you're just focused on development, a lot of that falls by the wayside. And I do think that if you can build a profitable entity out of running conferences, or at least sustainable, at least break even, then you can just do more, just get more people doing it. And then that's especially during like the bear years. People keep, talking super cycle and stuff. We haven't had a super cycle yet. Like we might have one, but probably we're going to have to be leaner. And so you kind of have to build so you can keep growing even during the non-pumpy years. And that's kind of what we're focused on. So yeah, really happy about all of that.
Yeah, amazing. Very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to attending. I'm looking forward to having you come along to Bliss, party with us in Ljubljana. And it's a very cool idea to have a bit of a conference network going. And I'll be fascinated to see how that idea plays out over time. Like you said, with a certain, conference organized like there. I know there's a Conf Pod as well. I haven't looked too much into it, but the BTC guys have enough conferences that they have a podcast specifically dedicated to running conferences and talking to organizers and stuff that I think they do irregularly. So it's quite the little niche scene of its own for us to follow, which is kind of something to, keep an eye on. Speaking of those BTC guys, I want to hit a very interesting turn of events in the BTC scene. We've got two little videos that we can maybe show here. This is our drama section. The first is Michael Saylor getting salty on what Bitcoin did, very uncharacteristically, because he's usually a sort of a more mercurial kind of guy, but just biting the head off poor Danny. A little bit inexplicably. Let's run the clip, and then I want to get your reaction, because it's a very odd thing. Maybe 1 minute of this, Jet.
No. The question I'm trying to get to though is like in 25, like you launching the preferreds, which I think are a really interesting product. Does that change the playbook for all these other companies, and how do they now compete against you? Now you have the preferreds as well.
I take issue with your question. It's an ignorant, insulting, myopic question. Why do you frame things that way? We're not competing with each other. That's like saying, well, like I heard my neighbor bought Bitcoin and I bought Bitcoin. There's not enough room for both of us to buy Bitcoin. We're competing with each other. Now, my neighbor's got to buy another crypto asset? Like, we're not competing with each other, Danny. Like that's the ignorant part of the question, right? That's what I take issue with. What you have, if you're a hotel company in Japan, you're competing with other hotel companies in Japan. And the decision to buy Bitcoin is just a decision to improve the quality of your company. It's like saying how many companies
kind of goes on. I think you can watch the full thing. You get the idea. There's not even just 1 minute of this. It's like at least 10 minutes, probably more, in the whole thing. But it was very, very unusual sort of thing from a friendly interview. And I sort of take it to be maybe a little bit of pressure is starting to seep into the BTC scene on a number of fronts. What did you make of this?
Okay, yeah, not good. First of all, every time I'm mercifully exposed to very little of what this person says, and every time I listen to him, I am always, I guess, baffled that people think that this is the voice of Bitcoin because of his weird, like, nasally little voice and his slouch in his chair. Like, this is your, like, sexy hero man. Like, what the hell? Anyway, that aside, clearly, yes, it's kind of like I find that a lot of people who get hot-headed randomly at little questions, it's a sign of a scammer. And of course, I'm not going to be, of course I would say that because I'm not a fan of the individual, but you start to have a few other things where it's like you ask too many questions, and it's not just like, well, I don't have an answer to that, or it's not even a little impatient. It's just like, the thing is, it's such an innocent question. It's like, look, all these Bitcoin treasury companies, you buy shares in the company and they buy Bitcoin, and somehow that translates back to the person. With this case, he's doing these high yield things in order to, I guess, get more capital in that he's, I guess, unable to get from other sources, whatever it is. And it's a very normal question of how can anyone compete with this? It's like, if they do the same, maybe they could. But Saylor's making he's saying something that is correct and a good point of, look, if this is a great tech, everyone should be using it. Everyone should be investing in it. If someone else does it, doesn't detract from me at all. But it's a complete non sequitur as far as like that doesn't follow with what you're saying. And he's been very two-faced about like only, those who win, the others will just fall behind, or everyone can kind of do it. And I think that what he's trying to do is he wants all the money for himself. He's trying to do all kinds of things to get everyone's fiat so he can buy Bitcoin and then give them worthless, whatever diluted shares that change up, whatever he's doing, whatever the analog version of a shitcoin is that he prints, that he gives to the whatever. It's pretty clear what he's doing. The thing is, he also doesn't want to FUD Bitcoin because he wants the price of what he bought to go up as well. And he's trying to walk this weird little line where he wants people to keep on pumping his bags, but also give him, and mostly him, money to get more of his bags. He's walking that weird little line, and I think people are starting to see through that it's getting a little, hostile. And unfortunately, this is the way the world works. I've been saying skeptical things about this individual for several years now, and I have the timestamps to prove it. A lot of people were too. This is not a special prediction that like, oh, I'm the one seer who could see that this is an obvious scam. But anyway, no one really questioned him in the Bitcoin world up until we started to see the MSTR price slip, the MNAV or whatever you call it, started to slip. Now all of a sudden people ask the questions they should have asked all along, and we're starting to see more and more of that pop out. And if you're running a profitable, successful business with a great model, you don't really care if there's haters as long as people are talking about you. But he's trying to run this thing where he has positioned himself as this cult leader, and you cannot have people asking questions there because your success is based on people not asking those questions. And just like even those little things, like the fact he strategically put like a chessboard in the foreground of this,
yes,
so cringe. And it's just like, it's the illusion of this like success and everything that, oh, I am the Bitcoin movement, so therefore you can't pretend like I'm just getting all the Bitcoin for myself, but also it's all about me. So like, it's this weird line he's talking where he's trying to sell MicroStrategy and he's trying to sell Bitcoin at the same time in ways that just profit himself, and it's becoming trickier to do. And people are going to get wrecked at some point.
Yeah, people are going to get wrecked. And like you say, the questions are sort of starting to circulate. Okay, maybe you and I have spent the last years and years pointing out that this is all going to end badly. But there's also slowly then suddenly where the people who previously were all bought in start to catch on, right? And we're having the exact same thing happen in the sort of development world, hijacking Bitcoin, etc. So Matthew Cratter made a very interesting video this week where he's been talking about a chain split and he's been educating people about that. Previously, he actually used the podcast chain split graphic that was really funny. We had that on the show, but he's now created his own one so that he doesn't have to have me dunking on him on Twitter. But regardless, he started making a video which not only telling people that there is, this is how chain splits works, that he expects almost certainly a split over the NOTS core issue with the release of BIP 110 in September 2026. Let's have a listen to this. Very interesting what he has to say about this.
This would be user-rejected soft forks, URSFs, which we'll be talking a little bit more about. So it's important to recognize that you can have a soft fork with or without a chain split. This time around, I imagine we're definitely going to have a chain split. As Ghost writes here, so far there's been 3 non-chain split hard forks in the history of Bitcoin. The original Satoshi client is not able to find the blockchain tip. And if we take a look, we can see those hard forks occurred in version 0.3, 0.4, and then the BDB one we were talking about was Bitcoin version 2.0. or Bitcoin Core, probably version 2.0.0. It's important to note that the BIP 110 soft fork, as I said before, will almost certainly lead to a chain split after it activates at the very moment that someone mines some spam in a block that's no longer accepted under the new consensus rules. At that point in time, you're going to end up with two versions of the Bitcoin blockchain. You're going to have Bitcoin spam chain and Bitcoin money chain. And I think it'll be very important to try not to make any transactions while this chain split is happening. Chain splits are always highly disruptive. And it's important not to make any transactions because one of these chains will almost certainly eventually get wiped out. And then the chain split will heal and you'll go back to just one blockchain. Now, there's a big wild card here, which we have to discuss in a subsequent video, but that's if the spammers choose to pursue a URSF, as we said, a user-rejected soft fork, to protect their precious spam chain. Then the chain split will become permanent. On one side probably Bitcoin spam chain will eventually wither away, just like Bcash and BSV and other failed forks of Bitcoin have done. The question, though, is will defenders of spam and CSAM on Bitcoin go this far? Will they really go as far as trying to activate a URSF to defend their spam? That would be quite foolhardy. And it's important to note that that would be what really causes the chain split to become permanent if the spammers decide to do that. Just doing a soft fork is going to create a temporary chain split, but unless the spammers do this, the chains will merge again and heal. So will defenders of spam go this far? Only time will tell.
So there we have it on the show on episode 151, and afterwards we ran a poll about what would the Knots guys come to 1 year from, I think it was June, maybe when we did that show, and 15% of listeners, and I think on the show we said maybe 10% chance that they ended up going for a full-on crash out chain split. Now, that's seeming increasingly likely that they are ready to go to the wall on their chain split dreams. Of course, Matthew Cratter he says, well, probably the spam chain will die. I would think probably actually it will be the Knots chain that will wither away and die, as he says. In fact, the most likely outcome is that the Bitcoin Core people don't need to do a URSF because there's just so little hashing on the Knots side that it doesn't really matter. But in the case that they do, and they should honestly prepare a URSF just to absolutely slam the door on that, the Knots guys will be out in the cold. But they are planning to go through with it. Like, they are in their echo chamber enough to really push on with this BIP 110, despite potentially, coming to a chain split. What do you make of this, Joel?
I think it's just the necessary sort of crash out where it's like, what is Bitcoin? And here's the thing that happens with all cryptocurrencies that do a hard fork governance mechanism, where obviously hard fork is always on the table for the ultimate governance mechanism, meaning irreconcilable differences. But eventually you have everyone you have a big tent, eventually everything else gets sort of hard forked away. And I kind of feel like in this case, what is Bitcoin for? Who decides? You had like three big camps, I would say, in the block size war era, where you had the run your own node cypherpunk small blockers, and then you had the L2ers, I would say, which is, I would kind of call that like the Adam Back, kind of like the intelligentsia of that side of the movement. And then it wasn't really as big as it is today, but there is the institutionalers, or whatever you want to call them, as far as like this is the biggest chain, you can't change it, and then therefore we get the institutions are coming, that whole thing. So kind of the three camps of Bitcoin, and now they're all sort of in conflict with each other, where the nerd side was actually two camps, as we're now starting to see, and they're fighting it out. And the Knots people were the shock troops of the 2017 era, and now they're kind of like, I don't want to play with you anymore.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like whenever you see some sort of a country that's going through like a coup, it's part of it is because like the president stops paying the military, and it's like, you don't do that. You pay them first, and then you Like if you want to hold on to power, I should say. It's so you cannot. These are your military, your troops. You're going to suffer some consequence by not paying them because they're meant to cause havoc. That's why you have them. And if you don't make them satisfied, they're going to go off and do this stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't think that there's the thing about the institutional lures or whatever you would call them. There's not much of a use case for Bitcoin outside of money going up. And Saylor's looking like a genius for a while to the uninformed. And now when he's not looking like a genius, if there is a crash and a liquidation or anything, that whole sector of Bitcoiners gets wiped out pretty much. It's purely market based. Then that just leaves the two left. And if the Knots people split off on their thing, I mean, they're not going to, no one's going to use this random Knots coin. They seem to, and like,
it's pure, it won't have spam. They think that's a value add. The fact that it has less people in it.
Yeah, like no one cares about this. Just no one actually cares. It did not become a problem. The only thing it was a problem for is when you couldn't send your transactions through. And that hasn't happened in a very long time. There was a couple big BRC20 ordinals, whatever things that just stamps, all that stuff that just clogged up the chain. And that's it. It's over. Like that's not going to happen again, probably. So the compelling reason is just not there. So, and the infrastructure as far as who has the exchange listing details, who runs the core repos, who does all this stuff, it's not them. And so they're not going to win. It's going to be another one of those like, useful idiots go to die kind of a thing, and that's just where it's going to go. Unfortunately, for the remnants, BTC has had an issue with the whole messaging where the Knots, I kind of feel like the Knots people won a lot more battles than the core people, even though they lost the war, where they were a small minority, but they inflicted more casualties than they themselves received during the war because of the way that everything was set up from the narrative perspective. And unfortunately, they got gifted one last victory with the Bitcoin Core version 30 problems where people's keys got erased and everything. And it's like, dude, the reason why you want to be trust us. We've had the repo since 2009. We're the ones who built stable software. It all just works. Knots is this crazy cat-eating dude on his own, and maybe more than him, but that's the narrative. How could you trust this software? This is not trustable. All this stuff. Okay, you might not like spam or whatever you call it, but you're going to maybe lose your money if you're on the spam chain. And then now it's just like that last little gift. Like from a chaos appreciation standpoint, it's perfection. Of like now you could lose your money. It's just like that old was it Bitcoin tray from back in the BitConnect days. You didn't really lose your money. I mean, you kind of lost your money. It's just like that, and it's just the biggest egg on your face and the worst timing for it. So they're still going to win, but it's just going to be sad. I don't know. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying watching the popcorn from a distance here.
So once they crash land their independent fork, that is going to be the drama fest of the year. We're going to have to do, we'll see how things are at the start of September. But the way things are drawn up now, that will be the best. We can do the best live stream where we get everyone on to watch them like go down with the ship in real time and monitor their reactions as they realize like, wait, we were in an echo chamber. We were the little, irrelevant side squad. And then, because then they have to like face the truth, right? That's the whole thing. Is first it was, we don't want to do any soft forks. We can just do it with the filters. Everyone's on our side. Okay, everyone's not on our side. Okay, we're going to need to do a soft fork. Okay, yeah, we'll get you guys on board. Okay, you guys don't want to do a soft fork. You don't give a shit about us. Okay, now we're going to have to go to a chain split. And then, they'll justify that to themselves. But chain split is serious business, right? Once you get to that, you either got to put your money on the table and lose it, get wrecked, or not actually commit to your thing, and then everybody's just like you're a fraud forever. Like you've given up all credibility at this point, right?
Yes, unfortunately, it's not a reasonable movement. Like this Bitcoin University guy is just nuts. He's completely nuts. If it was a reasonable thing, if I were to counsel the knots people, I would find a way. I would release a filter client, which basically,
I've got that.
I mean, if you think about it, like the SPV is kind of like that too, where you just download the block headers, you find your transactions, and then you don't store the rest. That's just what you do. And so it's kind of like reinventing SPV a little bit. But the point is, they should just do the Bitcoin like lightweight client, where they're like, this is the spam-free one. You don't have to download any of this stuff. They could continue to spread FUD about, oh, you're going to get, the CSAM on your node and blah, blah, blah. And you can just continue to say that stuff, but basically just be like, we're the competitor. We're the better implementation on the BTC chain. This is the node you should run. Get more people running, like build your movement over a long
They have that.
time.
They already have that. They have knots. It's 20% of the node runners. And they're just starting to get frustrated as in the early days, where knots is skyrocketing. The euphoria was there. And then they got to 20%, literally exactly the number that I predicted, 20 to 5%. It stalled out there because they have the intolerant minority, but not the actual economic weight that's kind of appealing to a segment of the users, but not all of them. Even if they have 20% of the nodes, they have less, 1% of the hash maybe, and they have 0.0001% of the money. So they're in a corner there, and they've been trying to do it the slow and steady way, but things have not been working out after that initial surge the way they expected. And so now they're having to front up to reality, and they've just gone deeper down the copes. Like I said, the filters will work. Oh, okay, the soft fork will work. Oh, okay, the chain split is going to work. That's it. That's the end of the line, right?
Yeah, because they chose it as an all or nothing kind of a thing, where the intolerance of other people. What was that Bitcoin node implementation that allowed you to sync the chain from the Genesis block in like record time? It was like something.
Libitcoin.
Yeah. So that's like a new cool thing. If you combine stuff like that plus the filter, so you don't have any of this spammy stuff, and you say, look, you can run your own node, and it's efficient and lightweight, and it just works, but you have your full financial sovereignty. You see all the financial transactions on the network, etc. And then you have like whatever infrastructure around that. You start saying, hey, you start shopping it out to third parties. Like, hey, you want to use this node software because it works, it's efficient, it's blah, blah, blah. It doesn't do all this other nonsense. And then you have a competing node implementation that you just grow over time in the free market, and you don't try to win this all or nothing idea war. And eventually you become software level competition for core. And then it's not like, then you have actual power, because if you think you're right, build your idea until it's a thorn in their side. Right now, you're just a PR nightmare. And once the PR, you can get rid of that. But like once like, oh no, people aren't using the software we build anymore. So therefore, us as being the core maintainers, now we don't have as much power as we used to. We used to be the default. That's how you would do it. But again,
that's how you would do it. But they don't have enough time in the day for that. We're talking about like a decade worth of building up credibility, slowly becoming competitive, blah 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 blah, all on very little to no funding. Like the core guys already have all the grants and all the this and that, while also getting completely wrecked by backporting. You're being vampire attacked constantly by the core repo because they say you have to maintain compatibility with us, and you say, okay, every time they tweak every little thing, you've got to review it. The diff gets harder and harder to maintain over time, which Knots is dealing with anyway. Of course, it's just the same as the big blockers finally, realizing you're dealing in bad faith. Like it's just got to go down to a split. They have worked their way over, because this all has been already going on for years. 2023 was when the ordinal stuff started. Like early 2025 was when they started to get upset about it after 2 years of failing to really give it the attention it needed. And now they're another year later. So now they're 3 years deep. Like, even at their slow rate of, figuring this out, they're still starting to figure it out. Like, we've been hijacked. And anyway, so I'm just saying, like, I think it's a big change that Matthew Cratter, who's clearly, following Mechanic and Luke, is like, guys, it's going to come down to a chain split. And he hasn't really dug too much into what happens if we lose. But that'll be the next thing. And then whether they have to go through with it or not, we'll see.
Well, the thing is, this is like a blowy vest. Like, you're just like going onto a bus and going kaboom. And like, okay, you're not going to survive. You're not surviving. And you're not taking out everyone on the bus either. So you're not having a total victory, but it is going to be harm where the other person isn't like, haha, those guys blew themselves up. They're going to be like, the market does not favor volatility and splits. Like we just had, like we mentioned with the Zcash thing, we had the same team migrate to a different company and the market reacted harshly. Like, oh no, the devs quit. Oh, there's uncertainty. And then I think that in retrospect, like Bitcoin Cash did not have a unified community after the split from BTC because it was a combination of general purpose big blockerism, all that in one community. And I think that at least the BSVers for sure needed to get out of there. I think the eCashers could have stayed in if Amari had been less demanding of having, the funding again, but bygones. I would say each of those chain splits was painful, necessary, but painful at the time. And then it's like, once you get that smoothness back in, now it's not as risky. Like, oh, we're gonna have to deal with it. Like, think about like the Bitcoin split was a big pain when it happened from BTC, right? BTC to BCH was a big pain. A lot of people lost funds, were looking, oh, where do I send it? I don't know. How do I split mine? Coinbase took all my split coins. What do I do? Or like whatever it was. I don't remember if Coinbase did that, but someone did. The point is, there was all this chaos and the market doesn't like that. Now in a world where BTC has a smaller share of the action, maybe not of the market capitalization, but of the stuff happening, a smaller share than it ever has. And there's so many other things out there. And everything that it has that it's dominant on is all the most risk-averse segments of the market, the boomer funds and stuff. And so if you have all of a sudden, the like Bitwise or, Van Eck or whatever, Van Eck has to deal with the chain split. Now what do? And now what do they tell their investors? Well, there was this thing, we have to pick one. You got other coins too, but now are we going to be a dual coin ETF, or are they just going to sell everyone's coins immediately and just be like,
they're going to dump more the Bitcoin
coin?
That's it. It's probably not even going to last as a chain split for a couple of days. Like I would be surprised if that happened. If they want to do a soft fork, they don't even want to.
But there will be a split, and that is chaos. And chaos, like Solana going down 8 million times, and then it stopped going down, is done way better since it stopped going down. And then the Ethereum Classic split. Anytime there's a big thing, it's a blow. And Bitcoin, so many people are hungry at the nipping at the heels, especially after the maximalists killed all their friendships in the space. Now it's like, it's going to be an ugly blow. It might be one of those things that starts the migration, right, to the diversification, I should say, where one of those things, of course, is going to be Saylor and the DATs the bubble will at least burst. I think that even if Saylor keeps his kingdom, people are losing money who invested in him, and it sours the whole DATs thing. A lot of DATs are just going to go belly up if they haven't already, just going to be gone. And then that whole institutions should have an allocation of Bitcoin thing is just going to be like, well, maybe we won't, and you're missing out anymore. It'll be like, some do, some don't. That's going to quiet things down. And if you hit a chain split as well, even if it's a minor one, there's enough loud people to where some boomer reading his newspaper is going to be like, hey, they're saying that there's a split or Bitcoin's splitting in two. He's going to call up, Fidelity and just be like, hey, is my Bitcoin splitting? What's going on? They said it's splitting. Do I need to do anything? And then, no, you don't need to do anything, whatever. But it's still going to cause enough FUD and drama to where that's like the impetus of like, maybe I'll look somewhere else. And that's what people don't understand necessarily is like, I try to make my decisions as like objectively according to my value system as I can, so that anytime something is better, I go to the better thing. Anytime it's worse, I don't immediately. But most people, there's a stickiness. They stick to their habits, their communities, their investments, their relationships. They stick. And as things get strained, they get kind of pushed at the edges of the stickiness. And then one little thing, snap, and they fly out to whatever else. So there's like a bunch of in capital and users and everything tied into BTC, that all the stressors of scaling issues, quantum FUD, privacy things, all that stuff, they're still in the Bitcoin bubble, but they're being pushed to the edges. There's friction, there's tension. And sometimes you might think it's something like it might just be having to deal with split coins again causes that one. I'm out. I'm going to look into something else. And some people might snap through. So I kind of feel like that's sort of the end of the maxi dominance era is right there where
death of knots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it. You know, I think that's a good prediction. All right, one thing I want to get to you, before we wrap the show, we've got we'll do message to the community. But first, you mentioned quantum a couple times. Where are you at on that? Is it coming to steal all our coins tomorrow? Is it not a problem for 10 years? Is quantum preparedness important across the ecosystem? Where are you at on that whole topic?
Well, I should preface this by saying my opinion doesn't matter here. But I have a friend of mine, Diego Salazar, who runs Stack Wallet and Cypher Stack. He, when he's asked about this, what he said is he has a lot of like high-level cryptographers and PhDs on his payroll who are into this kind of thing. And he basically said, I've never seen an issue where so many of the smartest people and most educated on the topic are so not in agreement. So like if I were just to give my my prediction, I think it's kind of like a 10 years from now thing. And it's giving it's like the serious version of like Y2K for those who are ancient enough to remember that whole situation of like, oh, it's going to cause an apocalypse. It never caused anything. But that wasn't actually not too big of an actual problem, whereas this is an actual problem that needs to be changed. The big problem is right now, we're at a stage where post-quantum cryptography, first of all, a lot of it has been broken already by non-quantum means. So like it's very new and experimental where it's not, what you want is secure cryptography. Quantum secure cryptography does not necessarily equal secure cryptography yet. And then there's also inefficient ways of doing things. So for example, when Monero used, I forget, I think it was range proofs for their signatures up until 2018, 2019 or whatever, they were very data intensive. And I do remember at one point, Monero had like several months, like 6 months of like maybe 3 months, I don't know, of sustained $1 to $2 transaction fees when it was way smaller. And then bulletproofs hit, and bulletproofs made the proofs dramatically smaller, and it just was able to work. So same thing with quantum cryptography. From my understanding, all the quantum cryptography schemes that you could work, first of all, they're very new and not thoroughly tested. So you could have other problems, but also they're very data intensive. So all of a sudden you could have this like really slow, inefficient network, but you're prepared for a threat that doesn't exist and might exist the next couple of years. It might not. And then even when you do get like a quantum threat, who is going to have the quantum computing ability? Is it going to be everyone immediately? What are they going to target first? Are they going to like how it's not just everyone gets doomsday tomorrow. There's just so much nuance to the thing. I would just guess we have 10 years to figure this out. And by figure this out, I mean implement a working solution. And so I would not want to be one of the first to implement it because you get the the bad solution, right? The not thoroughly worked out solution. And so this is my mental model. Again, maybe Linkstradamus type stuff. This is one of the ones where I get egg on my face for being completely wrong. I would say in 5 years, we should start looking at like making the plan for implementation across all our chains. As far as like the research needs to happen now. I think you need to keep up with things, but it's kind of like within 5 years, you got to be like, all right, let's start figure out what we're going to implement in our chain and do it. And then you have another couple years to get it implemented, and then it starts to become a problem. That would just be my mental guess. But again, I am the furthest thing from an expert on this. And as I also mentioned, the people who are very much experts on this don't agree. There's some that would agree with me. There's some that are like, no, you got like 3 years, man. You got to get out now. And so I don't know. I really don't know this one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, very interesting. Good to know that, you know, quantum protection at Dash is not like your top priority. Like throw out everything and get cracking on it, you know?
Yeah. And there's like ways of, there's all this, like the thing that I think people don't, there's a lot of things that people aren't taking seriously enough, such as like spam attack vectors and like 51% attack things and other things. The other thing is, of course, the privacy exploit thing, where I wouldn't say right now, a few years ago, a couple of years ago, if you did not leak your identity and no one was looking for you, you could stay pretty easily, I would say, anonymous on chain, where now you need that first nugget of like, oh, I saw this one. This has got to be Roger Ver's wallet. He sent some money. Then people are all watching like a hawk. Okay, maybe that is a problem. But for just random people who like just someone, hey, my first crypto, someone sent me BCH into my wallet at a farmer's market, and I'm going to do this. And then people watching the blockchain see random transactions. There's no point to correlate those things. But now because of AI, you have this massive data set of blockchain, and all you have to do is just say, find patterns, and it just goes through and finds patterns automatically. And now you're like, okay, this random person has pretty good privacy, but it's still, now you're like, okay, these are the known things. These are the exchanges. These are the KYC. This is that. These are all the people. And then there's a bunch of things that we don't know what it is, but we do know these are people. We clustered that this person, there's this person. I don't know where they are, what they live, who they are, but there's people trying to use cash fusions and stuff to help their privacy. But based on these patterns, we can determine it's probably a couple people. And then they consolidate funds somewhere. And it's like, oh, these 3 people is actually one person. Oh, we don't know who it is. And then you get one data point, and then your privacy's done, your financial history forever. And so a lot of people are really like, I think privacy is a bigger, is a more necessary thing than quantum stuff today, as far as like more serious overhauls, because I think every chain should do everything they can today to find a way to migrate a lot of data off, like remove it from the chain. As far as like when you send a transaction, it's like you have your obviously like IP address, and then you have your balance, like where it came from, where it went, the amount, the time, like all these markers as far as what this is, including sometimes certain wallets do certain behaviors. You do, oh, that was this wallet, it must be this. And I would just try to find if like you're not going to be completely leak free. Like even a Zcash transaction can leak some data, but in that case, it's the best case kind of scenario where you could leak your IP address and you just sent a transaction to someone. The timing is obvious. Like someone sent some kind of money to someone somewhere at this time, but it's still at this time. And then the other leakage is like, if it's a multi-party transaction, you can kind of see that it's a multi-party transaction versus single. So you might be able to rule some things out. But like, I would just try to remove some basic things. Like, I do think that a basic like confidential transactions type thing to just remove amounts, I think is a really good thing to implement just in pretty much every chain, and just kind of like get that off the blockchain for most cases where people aren't having that nugget of information. But basically being a lot more serious about privacy, I think it's going to hit a lot quicker than the quantum thing. And ironically, a lot of people are like, well, a lot of encrypted privacy type stuff could be broken by quantum computing. Therefore, retroactively, even if you are secure in the future, retroactively, you could unwind some transactions and be able to see transaction history. And of course, that's like a concern. But I kind of feel like it's not like you can just say, oh, that's just not a problem. Like, no, it is definitely a problem. But I think the bigger problem is today, where today so much can be divined by AI models, and the privacy problem is a way bigger problem today. And like, if let's just say 10 years, like 5-10 years in the future, all of your transactions get all of your encrypted transactions get decrypted in the past, there's a good chance, first of all, there's a decent chance that a lot of people will just be dead by then, right? It won't be relevant. They will have moved on to something else. You won't be able to do anything about that knowledge. And so, whereas today, today transactions are being leaked and it is relevant, and you could, like, for example, like Roger Ver having his whole case come back at him. Like, obviously, if that had been private, if all his blockchain activity had been private, then it would have been, by the time you were able to unwind and figure all that out, it would have been a different U.S. administration that did not care to prosecute, and it would have been past the statute of limitations. Therefore, even if they retroactively found, oh, guess what? You did not pay all your exit tax that we think, according to this, then it would have been too late to do anything about it. So even though you could still retroactively find that out in the quantum theoretical situation, I kind of think that it's less relevant. So you need to work to protect today. So I'd go privacy first, and then in 5 years, we start really worrying about quantum stuff.
All right. Good to know that's where you're at. Okay, I got meme of the week. Just very quickly, this is a perfect one. So I just had to hit it in there. Oh, also the Iranian rial went to zero. So unlucky if you're a bag holder of that fiat currency, you're finished. But anyway, the circle of life here, Pessimist Archive tweeting out, you either die a disruptor or live long enough to see yourself become an incumbent. And it's got two headlines. The first one is from 2015, Uber taxis attacked with rocks and clubs as licensed taxi drivers demonstrate against app. And then the other one was from January 2026, Lyft and Uber drivers protest over rise of self-driving robotaxis, right? So, you start out as the innovator. Yeah, it's what he says. You die a disruptor or live long enough to see yourself become an incumbent, trying to suppress the disruptors. I just thought this was very funny because that's going to be us one day, man. That's going to be us in 15 or 20 years. We're going to be like, no, cryptocurrency needs to stick around while people have moved on to telepathic, money or something like that. It is coming for us all, I'd say.
Well, that's the thing, is nothing is permanent. And that's something that I think Bitcoiners need to realize too, because, it's the original Satoshi's vision, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. Everything changes. The core cryptography might have to change. Like, the core economics might have to change. Like, there's always stuff that has to change. Nothing's permanent. And there's something about like being adaptable. And the thing is, I think people get really sad about having to leave incumbency, but like, just join the new people. Like, I know it sounds so like pedantic and like useless to be phrasing it, but it's true. At some point, like, how many people have left a country that they loved and found a new life in a different one? It's like, well, but I don't, time to move, sorry. And then at some point, future generations will be like, oh, this place is terrible, blah, 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 I gotta leave. Yes. But just like, you just don't want to be the chump sitting there when it sucks. Just go to wherever you need, use the blockchain you want. And like, I mean, when Bitcoin stopped working for me, I just moved quickly. I didn't sing around wringing hands. Oh my gosh, there's CSAM on the chain. Like, no, I was out there, like, out immediately, and then trying different things. And like, you see my whole like nostalgia over the mom and pop merchant era is firmly kind of over, where you will still have that, but it's not what we need to focus on. And it's like, there's a lot of not letting go involved in that, thing. And I'm sure a lot of people in the crypto world are like nano people, no offense again, but like on this like digital cash, and it's just all we need is a good money, and that's it. And then the realists are like, we need to build apps and stuff on top of this. It needs to be extensible. And there's a certain like hurts your soul letting go that, again, the Nazis haven't done. The Nazi people clearly haven't done. And so, yeah, just the timeless things are the principles of freedom and decentralization and sovereignty and of economic growth and better lives for everyone. Those are timeless, and I'm not letting go of those things. And whatever tools, whatever setup, whatever tribe of people is useful to that is where I'm at. And then as that fades, there will be new people, there will be new things. It's just, it is the circle of life, which is a lot better than the circle of exit liquidity.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, you got one chance. Final message to the community. Anything else you think the BCH community needs to hear or know from you besides privacy first over quantum and let go of the past?
Yeah, I would say one thing I've noticed a lot is what we don't have in crypto a lot is the complete connection from the end user to the protocol dev. There's a disconnect there. There's like the protocol devs build whatever, and then the businesses build whatever, and then they have end users, and the end user, the feedback doesn't go very far on that thing. You rarely have an end user who says, this isn't working for XYZ. And then it's not fast enough. It's not performing. This doesn't work. And that gets to the app developer. First off, that's just unheard of in crypto, that it gets like that one step. But then it's like, okay, well, let's fix it all. And eventually they run into a problem and they're just like, I can't get my app to work to the customer specifications. Then they talk to the protocol devs and are like, yo, your system just doesn't work this way. What can we do about it? And then there's actual conversation there. And then the protocol devs might try becoming end users themselves to be like, let me try this out. And then, oh, I see it. And then they make changes to the protocol. There are tweaks or efficiency improvements or whatever that then translates all the way back. And eventually the end user, it just works. That's what we're really missing. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I have every Friday, I do an after party after my podcast where the lead Dash developers happen to be in there, maybe a few drinks in, whatever. And I get to bitch about all the stuff that I encountered on a personal level in the real world. And then I get to trace that back to literally the core protocol, not just the apps, and just be like, we need this, that needs to be different, and argue about it and whatever. So feedback loop from core protocol dev to end user, and not end tester, but end user. Like someone should live off of this stuff. Someone should use whatever app for their day-to-day everything, and then be like, this doesn't work for me. I find myself not using it as much. Goes to the app developer, and then the app developer does their best. And if they keep running into issues, they have to hit the protocol developer, and the feedback has to go all the way through.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's also on our to-do list among our many battles we need to fight. Okay. For the fun me, shout out to Majumalu. This is a marathon. Molecular, the show we love. Cash Dragon, Bastion.com, fair and decentralized Twitter, at Cash Stamps, BCH for the win, DGN and FurQ, sick rap anthem, #1 token coming at you, P2P Cash, smash the state, greater than 40% API, HTTPS, //NWB.cash, Jonald, best podcast ever, Brian Kanachi, and Anonymous, our donators and patrons, Ricky, Kyle, and HP, and our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchfull.com, start guide, FAQ, and links at bitcoincashpodcast.com. And if you're new to the show, listen to episode 85. And also be ready to buy a Layla ticket on the 15th of Feb, because they're going to sell pretty fast, if I had to guess. Final shout outs and mentions. Where can people find more of you? What do they need to pay attention to, Joel?
Final shout outs.
Schiller clock, as you call it. Yeah, Schiller clock.
Schiller clock. Follow me on X at the Desert Links. Also, go try out Yapper, YAP.PR, Yapper. And I'm also under there as it's on testnet currently, but I've stacked a bunch of usernames, one of which is the Desert Links. You can follow me there, but also the Desert Linux, also Caracal, also Caracal 1337, and also TDL, and a few other usernames. I have many such names. So check that out and buy something with crypto this week. Do it. I believe in you.
Amazing. Jet, final shout outs? Nothing this week. And yeah, mine goes to, just once again, be watching the Bliss stuff. At the moment, you can still go on the website, bliss.cash, and have a look at the info. We've got a little bit, of stuff there, but there'll be a lot more coming out with the ticket sale on Feb 15th. So be ready for that. And of course, the actual event will be in May in Ljubljana from the 15th to the 17th. So if you want to start looking into flights or whatever, get yourself set up with that. And if you're somebody who's in the community and a bit behind the scenes, you're probably already talking to me and Jonathan about all that, and there'll be more happening there. So people will start seeing Layla profile pictures pop up hopefully in the next week or two. Keep an eye out for it. Okay, we're going to finish with Joël Valenzuela, the circle of exit liquidity. Thank you all for listening. Till next time.
Cryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Cryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Cryptonana, exit liquidity, dump it all. Hodl-nana, dump it all. From the day we arrive on the blockchain and blinking step into the trade, there's more to lose than can never be won, more to dump than can never be saved. Influencers, tweets, and the noobs all follow, buying high, selling low at a game. But the boomers know, and Sailor, he knows that the dump is coming. It's all the same. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Some of us fall by the wayside, and some of us soar to the stars. But the influencers always win with the Lambos and their cars. So beware of the pump and the inevitable dump, for the cycle continues and the news get wrecked. Cryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Cryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Cryptonana, exit liquidity, dump it all. Hodl-nana, dump it all. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope. circle of